Next story I wanted to cover here is very important. It's regarding Julian Assange, who was arrested. He was arrested, I believe, April 11th of this year. And he was taken by custody, taken by people in the UK, I believe. It was by officials in the UK. He was taken into custody. He is currently, I believe, in solitary confinement, I want to say. Yeah, that's what I was reading the other day. So, and that's raising a lot of free speech issues among progressives, among civil libertarians, people that are in favor of free speech. Tulsi Gabbard has spoken out against the decision to arrest him and the fact that it's basically taking away our civil liberties. So let me just read a little bit of this New York Times article that details further developments in this case. So it says Assange indicted under Espionage Act, raising First Amendment issues. This article was from the 23rd of May. It says Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks leader, has been indicted on 17 counts of violating the Espionage Act for his role in obtaining and publishing secret military and diplomatic documents in 2010. The Justice Department announced on Thursday. A novel case that raises profound First Amendment issues. And by the way, this article is by Charlie Savage, who's very good. Who's actually very good on this issue. Charlie Savage was he was one of the people that was covering the overreaches of the overreaching actions of the Bush administration when George W. Bush was president, and he did a very, very good job of covering that and writing articles. I think he was working for the Boston Globe, Savage was at the time. I actually have one of his books up here. It's titled Takeover: The Return of the Imperial Presidency. So this was under, again, the Bush-Cheney administration, and the fact that Cheney specifically was involved in a lot of actions that was violating the Constitution and infringing on people's rights and everything. So it was a very good, in-depth look at that kind of illegal stuff that the administration was doing. So let me just continue on here. It says the new charges were part of an expanded indictment obtained by the Trump administration that significantly raised the stakes of the legal case against Mr. Assange, who is already fighting extradition proceedings in London based on an earlier hacking-related account brought by federal prosecutors in Northern Virginia. The charges are the latest twist in a career in which Mr. Assange has morphed from a crusader for radical transparency to fugitive, from a Swedish sexual assault investigation to tool of Russia's election interference to criminal defendant in the United States. By the way, the accusations of being a tool to Russia's election interference is baseless. They've come up with zero evidence after constant attempts to frame Assange as working with the Russians and having involvement in the Russian hacking and all that Russiagate stuff. They've come up with nothing. They've talked about how he's had meetings with Paul Manafort or something, and a meeting with Donald Trump Jr. And it's all baseless. None of that has actually been proven by anything other than basically hearsay. But it's been published as if it's a fact. And the establishment and Democratic loyalists have definitely eaten it up with a spoon. It says, Mr. Assange vaulted to global fame nearly a decade ago as a champion of openness about what governments secretly do, but with this indictment, he has become the target for a case that could open the door to criminalizing activities that are crucial to American investigative journalists who write about national security matters. The case has nothing to do with Russia's election interference in 2016, when Mr. Assange's organization published democratic emails stolen by Russia as part of its covert efforts to help elect President Trump. Instead, it focused on Mr. Assange's role in the leak of hundreds of thousands of State Department cables and military files by the former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning, who's formerly Bradley Manning. Yeah, so, I mean, again, Savage, unfortunately, is referring to Russia a lot in this article. And it says, when Mr. Assange's organization published democratic emails stolen by Russia, again, that has not been proven by anything that I've seen. It has not been proven by anything that I've seen other people investigate. From what at least Assange is saying and what WikiLeaks is saying, the democratic emails were stolen from, I think what Assange ended up saying was it's information that he ended up getting from the gentleman that was killed. He was found dead in Washington, D.C., and he was a former Democratic operative, Seth Rich. And Seth Rich was killed. His death was covered as just kind of like a random killing. So somebody just came up to him and shot him and just went away, and acted as if just like a random shooting, almost like as if you were to be like mugged on the street, and then God forbid somebody shoots you and kills you. So they're treating the Seth Rich cases like that. So and then anybody that kind of brings up the Seth Rich case as if it's kind of strange that he got killed without even, for example, having his wallet stolen. Anybody that, or any of his valuables and stuff stolen, even his, I think, briefcase or something was stolen, and people are so the people that question that are called like conspiracy theorists. So. I haven't really delved into the Seth Rich stuff very much, but I definitely think there is a strong case to be made that he was killed under suspicious circumstances, and I wish it was looked into more, and obviously nobody wants to look into it. Anybody that brings it up, they're just called a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, somebody's making a point that Seth Rich still had an expensive watch on his wrist and money in his pocket. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's something that I heard as well. And like I said, that's something that happened, and people ignore that. People like to act like as if that as if that's some sort of as if it's a conspiracy theory. Like, we're pointing out facts. So what if it was any other case? I guarantee you, people, if you go and investigate any other regular kind of normal murder case where somebody is shot on the street, people are going to be like, wait, that's a little weird. They didn't steal their wallet, they didn't steal their gold watch, they didn't steal whatever else they had. I mean, that's a little bit curious. I mean, people are you're gonna wonder, any kind of, you watch any kind of, mystery show, like Forensic Files, FBI Files, where they talk about these kind of cases where these things happen. The first thing the cops look at is, was their wallet stolen? Is their money still there? Is their valuables taken away? Or is anything missing? All this shit was there. So, and it's somehow they don't see that as a problem. Somehow they don't see that as being a little bit of a that would make people question what happened, So, so that's kind of, so to go back to that point, to reiterate my point, WikiLeaks did make the argument that it was Julian Assange, when he obviously he released that the DNC emails. It was taken by Seth Rich, and a lot of people feel that he got killed because somebody found out somewhere that he stole those emails and gave it to them, and he was killed. So that's what the conspiracy theorists believe. So anyway, so the next part of this article says, Justice Department officials did not explain why they decided to charge Mr. Assange under the Espionage Act, a step also debated within the Obama administration, but ultimately not taken. I'm assuming back then they probably didn't have enough evidence because I'm assuming Obama would have done it because he seemed pretty gung ho against like going after Assange for that. So, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems kind of weird that Obama would do it. I'm sorry, Obama wouldn't do it, but Trump is doing it. It's a little bit curious, especially since people think that Assange was like so pro-Trump. Anyway, so, and then it says here, yeah, so that action was not ultimately taken by the Obama administration. It says, although the indictment could establish a precedent that deems actions related to obtaining and in some cases publishing state secrets to be criminal, the officials sought to minimize the implications for press freedoms. So that's, I guess, good, but obviously they're not doing that now. So press freedoms are absolutely not being considered now. They noted that most of the new charges were related to obtaining the secret document archives as opposed to publishing them. In the accounts that deemed the publication of the files a crime, prosecutors focused on a handful of documents revealing the names of people who provided information to the United States in dangerous places like war zones. Quote, some say that Assange is a journalist and that he should be immune from prosecution for these actions. This is quoting John Demers, the head of the Justice Department's National Security Division, said at a briefing with reporters. Further quoting says, the department takes seriously the role of journalists in our democracy, and we thank you for it. It is not and has never been the department's policy to target them for reporting. It says, but Mr. Assange, he said, was no journalist. Quote, Mr. Demers accused him of conspiring with Mrs. Manning to obtain classified information. No responsible actor, journalist, or otherwise would purposely publish the names of individuals he or she knew to be confidential human resources in a war zone, exposing them to the gravest of dangers. Okay, well, comparing the truth of what's going on with your government's corruption is not exactly the same thing as publishing information from a war zone. Because in the war zone, you don't want your enemies to know where you are. So if your enemies know where you are, then they can attack you. I don't know what the relevance is there between that and publishing information that exposes corrupt actions of your government. But okay, obviously they're going to go out of their way to make baseless comparisons here, but that's not surprising. That's usually what they do anyway. Let's see, where am I at here? It says, it says here, so it says, for the purposes of press freedoms, what matters is not who counts as a journalist, but whether journalistic activities, whether performed by a journalist or anyone else, can be crimes in America. The Trump administration's move could establish a precedent used to criminalize future acts of national security journalism, said Jamil Jafar of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University. The charges rely almost entirely on conduct that investigative journalists engage in every day. He said the indictment should be understood as a frontal attack on press freedom. Says Mr. Demers left the press briefing without taking questions at a Justice Department official who stayed behind to answer questions on the condition that he would not be named would not address any about how most of the basic actions the indictment deemed felonies by Mr. Assange differed in a legally meaningful way from ordinary national security investigative journalism, encouraging sources to provide secret information of news value, obtaining it without the government's permission, and then publishing portions of it. Let's see. So let me just read a little bit more here. It says, Notably, the New York Times, among many other news organizations, obtained precisely the same archives of documents from WikiLeaks without authorization from the government, the act that most of the charges addressed. While the Times did take steps to withhold the names of informants in the subset of the files it published, it is not clear how that is legally different from publishing other classified information. So this is very true. Charlie Savage, again, great journalist, he's making a good argument here that this is, what WikiLeaks did is not really any different than what WikiLeaks did. And I'm not an expert on this kind of the legal matters here, constitutional legal matters, but I mean, you would think there would be, like, if this information was, because if I remember correctly, like the New York Times did this, as they stated. I think Barton Gellman also, I think was he the New York Times? He might have been the New York Times. He's another great author whose book I have. He wrote a book titled he wrote a book titled Angler, the Cheney vice presidency, and he's also another guy that supported kind of the disclosing of information. So he was covering a lot of the kind of the unconstitutional actions of the Bush administration that Cheney also was involved in, obviously. And so Gelman also, I think he might have been involved in some situations where he was disclosing private information. He definitely came out in support of Chelsea Manning and I believe Edward Snowden as well. I'm not sure about Assange. He might have said something about Assange. So I'm not particularly sure. I haven't followed Gelman in a while, but he's a great reporter, just like Charlie Savage. Both very good on issues of constitutionality and free speech and First Amendment and stuff. But yeah, you would think that the same thing that the New York Times did, WikiLeaks would be they would be covered on that, under that law too, under that kind of, they wouldn't be basically accused of espionage. But apparently WikiLeaks is, and I think the only reason, honestly, that is it's possible though that because WikiLeaks, but Julian Assange also has, like, there's vested interest from other countries. For example, Sweden, who is, there's like, he's being accused in Sweden of committing, rape on somebody, or something, not rape, but not necessarily rape, but like underage sex or rape or something of a young lady or something. So apparently he's being accused of that, and then so I would think, like, other countries probably have a vested interest. So America is being like, okay, well, we'll just make all these charges against Julian Assange, because we can also get other countries that are also going to want that to happen as well. So other countries might be pushing the United States, and our Justice Department to basically, charge him with further things, so that they can also, that he's also taken out, and, he's not able to have any more influence than he obviously already has. I mean, obviously Julian Assange is somebody that is considered, as somebody just commented, he's very dangerous, quote unquote, but he is seen as somebody that is going to be obviously doing a lot of things that the deep state, the establishment, big governments are not going to want him to do, and he's doing it, and they're obviously pissed off about it, and they're gonna get after him and try and lock him up as fast as possible, as much as possible, get him on every espionage, charges, they can, and let alone charges of rape and, whatever they're going to accuse him of, rape, incest, whatever they want to lob against this argument, they're going to throw the fucking book at him. So, yeah, it's totally ridiculous. And like I said, the fact that the New York Times is able to get away with doing this kind of stuff, but WikiLeaks isn't, is very peculiar. The next paragraph here refers to Barry J. Pollock, who is a lawyer for Mr. Assange, who said his client was being charged with a crime, quote, for encouraging sources to provide him truthful information and for publishing that information. That dramatic step, he said, removed the fig leaf, quote, fig leaf, that the case about his client was only about hacking. Quoting further, he says, these unprecedented charges demonstrate the gravity of the threat the criminal prosecution of Julian Assange poses to all journalists in their endeavor to inform the public about actions that have been taken by the U.S. government. So the rest of the article is basically it seems to go through like kind of the history of the Espionage Act in the United States, what the Obama administration did about that. It seems to be more just past information, people kind of like information that kind of some people would want to know. You guys can check out the article. Obviously, I'm going to put it in the description box for you guys. You can check that out for yourself. But that's, this whole case is very, very unfortunate. Me being somebody who stands up for free speech and the First Amendment, I consider myself a constitutional progressive, and I'm somebody that fights for progressive values, but I also believe in freedom of speech. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that people should have the right to express themselves in every way possible, as long as it's not putting anybody's life in danger. So, death threats and, stuff like that. Obviously, any kind of physical abuse is not good. And, I'm not in favor of any kind of violence, anything like that. Just people that are able to express themselves, whether they're protesting, whether they're marching, whether, whatever they're doing, And, that's why I love organizations like the ACLU and whatnot. Those are all very, very, good organizations. Publications like The Intercept are very good when it comes to covering issues of civil liberties and stuff. So, you guys should definitely check out Glenn Greenwald again. Glenn Greenwald's from Intercept. Jeremy Scahill is very good. Lee Fang. Another one is, forgot his name. I'll remember it in a second. But yeah, guys like that I just mentioned, Barton Gellman. There was one other guy I just wanted to let you guys know about, so you can check him out as well. Let's see. So I mentioned Scahill, Greenwald. Let's see. Lee Fang I mentioned. Ryan Grimm is also a very good reporter, but he's on kind of other issues. Not so much civil liberties. James Risen is very good. I also have another book. James Risen's book is titled, actually I have two of his books, I think. One of the books from James Risen is State of War. And the other one's called Pay Any Price. So if you guys want to check those out, those are all very good. James Risen is some people are not really happy with James Risen these days because he's taken kind of a Russiagate stance on some issues, which is unfortunate. So that sucks, but I just wanted to find out who this other journalist is for you guys. He's a very good reporter. I always try and find the journalists that have the ability to address issues that a lot of other reporters do not address and do not cover. So your typical kind of like your typical like establishment journalists. They're not even real journalists. They call themselves journalists. They're journalists by name only, essentially. Yeah, somebody mentioned Aaron Mate. Aaron Mate. Aaron Mate is very, very good. I've been following him for a long time. I love that guy. I've praised him, on Twitter many times directly to him, and he's kind of liked one of my tweets or whatever, but not that big of a deal. But I mean, it's he's obviously he appreciates people that go out and kind of stand up for the same things that he does. I like to refer to these people, and Aaron Mate being one of them. He's I like to consider him a independent leftist. A couple of other people here are Whitney Webb. She works for Mint News Press. That's a very good publication. Sarah Abdallah is very good. I don't know where she writes for. Sarah Abdallah is very good, though. Michael Senato, he's also a very good reporter. Jake Johnson, he writes for Common Dreams. Ken Klippenstein, he actually works for the TYT, but he's unearthed a lot of good information as well. Brianna Joy Gray actually works for Bernie Sanders right now as his, I think it's press secretary. I believe Brianna Joy Gray is, but she used to work for, I believe it was Current Affairs, I want to say. Benjamin Norton is very good. Chris Hedges is very good. Manar A. Mahawash, she's very good. Peter Hart, Anya Parampil, she's actually covering a lot of the stuff that's going on in Venezuela, which is very, very good. You should check her out. As somebody mentioned, Aaron Matei, Jordan Sheridan is very good. Samir Khan, I think used to work for TYT. I'm sorry, RT, so Russia Today. Zaid Jilani, that was who I was thinking about. Zaid Jilani is somebody that was he was also at The Intercept. He ended up leaving, if I remember correctly. I didn't see him on The Intercept's list of writers and stuff, but Zaid Jilani is a very, very good reporter. He left The Intercept. Max Blumenthal is good. Matt Taibbi is very good. Rania Khalek. Margaret Kimberly, Abby Martin, Michael Tracy, Jeremy Scahill, I mentioned before. Caitlin Johnston is awesome. I love Caitlin Johnston. Glenn Greenwald. Kevin Gustala is very, very good. David Sirota, who now works for Bernie Sanders. Li Fang, I mentioned. So yeah, check those people out. They're very, very great reporters. Ryan Graham, yeah. Somebody just mentioned Ryan Graham. Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. Works for The Intercept. He's a great independent reporter. So you guys should check those people out. So and definitely keep up with this Julian Assange situation. It's very, very important that we take back our civil liberties, take back our First Amendment rights, take back our free speech rights, freedom of press. I'm somebody that's obviously doing a podcast here. I want as much freedom of press as possible so that I can state my views. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm probably not going to be uncovering anything that anybody doesn't know. I'm just going on here. I'm just a fucking asshole on a microphone talking to 3 different cameras right now. So I don't take myself that seriously, but at the end of the day, I do take First Amendment rights and free speech seriously. And I hope you guys appreciate that. And, I'm going to do everything I can to keep myself, doing what I'm doing here. So, so that's, hopefully something, can come along with this Julian Assange case, and, free speech rights can be kept can be kind of maintained and not taken away from us more than they already are, which was already done under the Bush administration. It was done under the Obama administration, and it's being done under the Trump administration as well. So, and I just wanted to know one more last thing is a lot of people were talking about how Julian Assange apparently was like super pro-Trump and Trump loved Julian Assange. But isn't it kind of ironic now that it's his administration, his Justice Department that is accusing, that is making all these accusations against Julian Assange and is making all these charges against him? That's crazy. I can't even believe. Well, I don't know. I guess I can't believe it, but it's amazing that people just want to completely dismiss the reality and just make it as if it's like a Trump. Oh, well, he didn't like Hillary Clinton, so he must be right winger. He's loved by Trump. He must be loved by he must agree with everything that Trump does because he didn't like Hillary Clinton and he did something that was against Hillary Clinton, so he must be loved by Trump and loved by all right wingers. And I always thought that. And I love, this person mentioning that Assange is a libertarian leftist. I love libertarian leftists, libertarian socialists, libertarian leftists, left libertarians. Those are all great people that I fully agree with. I don't really agree with they're more like anarchist views. I'm not really an anarchist type. I can see how people are anarchist, and that's perfectly fine. I can see where they're coming from. I can see myself having some anarchical views on some issues, but I'm not a full-on anarchist. That's just not me. But I'm not hating on any anarchists. So, go do what you got to do. Just make sure you're not, getting involved in any kind of violence, because I don't think that helps anybody. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point, though, regarding Assange and Trump. And Assange is not pro-Trump. Let's just put it out there. And this further proves that Trump is definitely not pro-Assange. And this is not going to make Assange love Trump either. So let's just end it with those conspiracy theories, please.